And of course, this is what everybody always wants to see is a case study from someone who has actually gone through this process. I mentioned our WAN manager survey that we do at Telegeography. We found that about a year ago, a year and change ago, 83% of the folks we asked were at some stage of adopting SD-WAN. But often that was the very early stages. So there's still a lot of folks out there who haven't done that yet. So it's really great to hear the experience of those who have and see if you can learn from their good choices and what didn't go well and all that sort of thing. So with that, I'd like to please invite my panel up here to join me. And Martin, if you could sit on the far end, maybe. Yeah.
The middle man.
You squeezed.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you guys so much. I'm actually going to sit down, so I'm not talking to you. Can everybody hear me okay without the mic?
Yep.
I've never been accused of being a soft talker, so I'm going to let you guys have the mic if you want it to pass around. We only have one. But I thought it'd be interesting. First, we're going to hear about Elekta, but before we do that, just a quick introduction of yourselves, your role, your company. In case I don't think anybody's confused on what Globalinternet does, but we just go through and introduce kind of what your role in this whole process was briefly.
Okay, Kees Bos. I'm the founder and CEO of Globalinternet.
That's a very my name is Verder van den Berg. I'm from Videns IT services. We are a specialized and independent provider of global managed SD-WAN services. I think we are going to discuss the case in a bit more detail, so I can explain our role in the Elekta case or elaborate a bit more on the role that we had in the process. My role within Videns is that I'm responsible for sales and business development, and I also started our SD-WAN competence in 2015, being one of the first managed SD-WAN providers in the Benelux region.
Martin Kerkhoven, VP of Information Technology at the Elekta. I'm not sure, I had a few slides, I'm not sure if they're here. And so we're a medical device company. We are developing our own software and medical devices, and the medical devices are radiation devices for cancer treatment and brain disorders. We have multiple factories around the cloud, and our ambition is that we really want to help clinicians around the world in all the hospitals preferably to become our customers and deliver treatment through our products, hardware and software products. So we have about 6,000 hospitals worldwide as our customers, and through our technology we treat every year around 140,000, well, 1.5 million are treated with the Elekta solution, but about 114,000 people every day hear about cancer. So cancer, everyone knows people with cancer, family, friends, relatives, colleagues, terrible disease, and it's fortunate and unfortunate. It's a booming business for us, but in fact, population gets older. Cancer is a big thing.
Okay.
Those were the slides, I guess, that you picked out.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, no, it's great to have a background of sort of who the company is, what they do. That's often when I'm at these kind of events, the first question that I ask so that we can frame everything. So good to have that in focus. But I also want to talk more about the network itself. So both what it looks like pre-transition, afterwards. So if you could just answer, again, from all of your perspectives, perhaps as a managed services provider and the service provider, you'll have some insights on this as well. But first, just some really basic questions about your network footprint. How many sites do you have in the WAN?
I think we've got 40 sites, 35 of SD-WAN approximately.
Gotcha. Okay. And can you give us a broad overview of your physical geography, your network footprint?
We're truly global. 5 sites in China, about 5 sites in the US, and the rest is scattered over Europe, some in Africa.
Yeah, so in terms of particularly expensive or difficult markets, you've got China to deal with as
And
well
China,
as in Africa, right?
China.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if you take us back pre-transition, what network services were you running at most sites?
Internet, single circuits at most sites, and an MPLS network.
Okay. And what's some typical MPLS port sizes that you had at those MPLS sites?
Smaller, we're probably between 2 and 6.
2 and 6.
And then we've got mid 10, 20, and a few that were more data center specific or larger sites with 200 plus staff.
Gotcha. Okay. And then for you, Farron and Case, were you involved in the network at this pre-transition at all, or what was your role at that time?
Yeah, we already delivered services on top of the existing network of Elekta. So network performance management services over the MPLS and internet hybrid solution. So I think it was for a period of about 3 to 4 years. And then the MPLS contract expired with the incumbent provider of Elekta, and we started engaging on new technologies like SD-WAN. So we made a proposal to Elekta, having some initial discussions. They started an RFP process late 2017. In the end, we were selected as their preferred supplier. So we conducted a proof of concept of the software-defined WAN proposal that we submitted in the RFP process, which was successful. And then after some contract negotiations, we started deployment in May-April timeframe, completing by the end of October 2018. So you've been now running the network service for about a year and a half?
Yeah, so we started, as I said, I think the first sites went live in June 2018, and obviously managing towards the end of our MPLS contract, which was also quite a challenge to get the sites aligned for a single end date, because typically that is an issue. And so if you are considering this, you should try to align this towards a single end date. It helps a lot.
In case, were you guys working with them before transition?
Yes, we were. We were delivering internet access services to Elekta since 2013. So,
All right, so I think it's fair to say Elekta was a bit of an early adopter, perhaps, in this type of transition. Can you just take us through that decision-making process? What led you down this road? What were the drivers?
Well, typical driver that was already mentioned is obviously cost. No flexibility with the vendors, time to deploy, all those typical components that we've been facing with MPLS for a long time. And we were requiring more bandwidth, higher throughputs. We have R&D centers across the globe. At those days, the cloud was not yet as it is today, and so people were transferring data. We changed our concept from data to the user. We bring now the user to the data, so minimize impact of network delays and so on and so forth. That's what, yeah.
Yeah, something that comes up a lot in this kind of transitionary phase is the internal business case in terms of making sure that everybody from IT or even the CFO is on board. Did you have any difficulties in selling this transition there, or particular challenges?
It's actually quite easy. The business case was sound.
You're saving money, right?
Yeah, well, that was, as you also said, not even the most important outcome. We are now operating at a 60% cost of what we used to do before, which includes Ipanema services that we could theoretically take out, but we are very interested in getting more insight on how the WAN actually is running, and the Ipanema provides that service. As well, on the MPLS we had the Ipanema, so we could easily reuse the licenses that we had on that network, and so it was an easier decision than when we would start from scratch, I guess.
And did Videns play a role in this stage and the thinking through the transition and then selling it internally?
Selling it internally in Elekta?
Within Elekta, exactly.
Well,
yeah.
obviously we helped providing input for the business case in Elekta. And I think what was quite key is that Elekta decided to completely replace the MPLS with a fully internet-based SD-WAN solution. So obviously that provides, first of all, a lot more flexibility, faster delivery times, but also much more cost efficiency. So getting a lot more bandwidth than they previously had on the MPLS network. So indeed, we did manage the Ipanema solution prior to migrating the network service to SD-WAN. So we retained basically that portion of the service because it provides a very granular insight in actual network usage and application performance over the network. But we fully migrated the underlying network infrastructure, the combination of MPLS with internet, to a VeloCloud-based global SD-WAN solution.
The fact, by the way, that Videns was an incumbent vendor was not the reason why we selected them. We did a full RFP process with all the main vendors, with the Silver Peaks and the Meraki's, the Riverbeds and so on. VeloCloud also one of them. And so through this selection process and this RFP process, we came again back to Videns as the reseller of VeloCloud. So just wanted to make that clear.
You actually, since you brought that up, it actually brings me to my next question anyway, which is sort of a little bit more taking us through the RFP process. And I want to start with, I've encountered some end users who treat the overlay and the underlay as one and the same in the RFP process, where since you had decided to leave behind MPLS, were you looking at RFPs with overlay providers and then separate RFPs with, say, Globalinternet, right? Or did you kind of still bundle that whole process together?
We were open to the underlay providers. We already had Globalinter as internet provider, also for obvious reason, the hassle with dealing with local ISPs and in the end not getting what you want, or too far distance. You need to run almost your own NOC to manage these guys. And so that's something that Globalinter gladly took away from us. So the overlay services, and you can have different layers of how far you want to take it. We gave them all the option, all the vendors that we RFP'd out to were given the options. Okay, what is your sweet spot, or what do you want to deliver? Can you do the local connectivity? Can you add these additional services? Can you make it the managed service, or are you just shipping boxes? So that was all part of the contract. We are not set up for a massive networking department or group. Our network architect is here in the room, and we've got 3 guys managing our networks globally. Which is absolutely fine. You don't want to have a 24/7 operations on your own if you can outsource it.
I've encountered enterprises with tens of thousands of sites that have only slightly larger teams than that, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. You ended up selecting VeloCloud. You kind of just went through this a little, but can you just tell us specifically what is it that you liked about VeloCloud? Aaron, you might chime in on this as well. If you have some thoughts.
I'll start where I come from. Obviously, it was nice to have an incumbent vendor that we knew. So we selected the technology based on a number of criteria. The sizability of the solution was one. The ability to make integrations and have fully meshed networks was another one. Third one was, if you think about what a SD-WAN solution actually does, is it dynamically sets up tunnels and connections between 2 locations. So how does it do that? Is it per session or per packet? So the dynamic capability of the VeloCloud solution gives in the end a much better throughput, because you're not depending on having a specific link up between A and B for the duration of a session. So if you make this, which was another option where we looked at the number of the variances of connectivity into the edge devices, we want to improve our resiliency, high availability, multiple internet connections. If one goes down, you run through on other connections, ability to move in G4, so in the very rural South African, we've got offices in Pretoria and Cape Town as well. And so to deal with those things, all added up in selecting vendor cloud.
And Farron, anything to add there?
Yeah, well, for us, we are a managed service provider, so we sell a service and not a technology. In the end, we do find that today it's still very much a technology sale, but in the end, it's all about the service. And essentially, we selected VeloCloud in 2015 when we started our SD-WAN competence. And certainly at the time, it was a very developing market. It still is, but it was before VeloCloud was also acquired by VMware. We selected VeloCloud as one of two technology solutions that we have in our portfolio for a number of reasons. First of all, functionality. We very much liked the optimization capabilities of VeloCloud. As Martin indicated, it provides a lot of benefit of being able to support real-time applications over your standard public internet connections. Also the whole concept of cloud gateways to optimally connect Azure, AWS and SaaS applications. And certainly also the automation aspect. So it's really a plug-and-play solution. So from a management perspective, managing a network based on central business application policies. That were the three things in VeloCloud that we like best. And to be quite fair, at the time we also liked a party that was screaming a lot in the market. There were a number out there. We also spoke to Vitale, later acquired by Cisco, but that was also a consideration. Plus the fact that at that time many SD-WAN vendors had a lot of slideware and very few actually had real-life and large-scale deployments. So for us it was also a criteria to select VeloCloud at the time. So today it's still a key technology partner of us, providing services. We also have another SD-WAN technology vendor in our portfolio, but given the requirements of Elekta, this was an obvious choice for us.
Absolutely. You know, it depends on how one categorizes SD-WAN, but by some counts there's 70 some odd SD-WAN providers, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say there will be fewer than that in the next few years, right? So we hear the same 4 or 5 names come up pretty much anytime I talk to the folks who are making these decisions. All right, so Martin, I just want to focus in on this big step. Okay, so when we survey WAN managers, it's still about 2/3 that say that they're planning to keep some MPLS. About 1/3 are going the all internet route. I don't know if anybody here listens to packet pushers, but Greg Farrow is a man who's not shy and often says how much the people he talks to dislike their incumbent service providers. So you don't need to get into any vendor bashing or anything like that, but I'm just curious, what made you decide, okay, I feel comfortable with this solution enough to completely get rid of MPLS and take that leap to all internet?
Yeah. Well, it was mainly the technology and the capability to build in high availability at an affordable cost. And so we are an international operating company, and we're obviously not obviously, but luckily, a healthy company. But there is no unending cash position. And so cost is important, and we do have the requirement to provide more resilience into a network, diverse routing. SD-WAN does provide that capability, so that was one obvious choice. So I will not mention any names like KPN or BT. We have massive issues with those guys managing our MPLS network. Remark here, we're working through KPN International, there's only a few guys left at the moment. So we had no confidence in them helping us taking the next step So within Elekta, I'm responsible for Elekta internal IT, but also for cloud services. We do a lot of hosting out of our own data centers, and we're doing pilots currently in Australia, or they've finished, and go big in cloud in January in North America, and then continue to roll out cloud solutions for our customers globally. Definitely, those incumbent big log vendors were not able to do it. They do not have that flexibility, nor capability, or understanding. Dusty people, not my kind of guys.
Understood. I can stay here neutral and hear you say it. That's fine. Actually, Case is a place where I might ask you to come in if you like, but just take us through, when I say internet here, what do we mean? Are we talking DIA in this case, business broadband, some mix of the two, and why?
Good question. You have to help me a little bit, Elekta. Martin, but I think most of it is DIA.
Correct.
And
most of it is DIA,
Yeah.
most of it is also diverse routing,
Yeah.
different vendors, different routes into building where possible. Even our sales is very keen on that to deliver to us, because it's an ask from us very specifically. If we have no alternatives, here we go, broadband or tie in some other services, but those are the most common ones.
And if you take us maybe more through sort of that decision-making process, if you're advising a customer.
What we see is that there's often quite a lot of demand for broadband solutions because they're very cost-effective, but they're not always available in certain regions or at certain business locations. So, but I think although broadband promises high bandwidth, it is a different product than DIA. You talked about peering, but especially if upload is important. We see most of our enterprise customers going for DIA solutions, and I think that's an advice that I would give. You could maybe say.
So most enterprise customers are going for DIA solution. Are you seeing them back that up with extra broadband at a lower price tag to up the down bandwidth?
Yeah, I think.
It was in my presentation, that's how I say it.
I think if it's available, it's of course great to add it to have additional resiliency, especially if you have an SD-WAN solution. It's very easy to add it.
Or through prioritization, you can just say, well, this FTP, email, whatever, non-critical traffic, just use less expensive bandwidth. You don't really care when it arrives. If it's there within the next 30 seconds or a minute, it's fine. But for the more critical, you definitely want to have DIA if available.
Yeah, and as a service provider, we have some standard design practices based on the criticality of the site, is the factory, or based on the number of users, either to go for 2 DIA circuits, different providers, dual routes, to go for a combination of DIA with broadband, or to go for a single DIA with broadband circuit. So we've got some design practices that we've deployed with many customers that obviously we can tweak for every single individual requirement. They seem to be quite common across the board.
Excellent. All right. This is going to be a question specifically for you, Martin, because you had been using Global Internet since 2013, so that was already in place. But for those of people in the audience that are thinking about perhaps getting rid of MPLS, going all Internet, did you kind of weigh through, should I source this directly? Should I could get this from a carrier? I think we already know how you felt about the carriers, but just take us through that decision to use an aggregator instead of some alternatives.
Well, actually been looking for parties, and in those days those guys were not banging on the door very loud. So we really had to look for parties that could do single sourcing of internet connections globally. And so we were trying to move away from vendor management ourselves, because there are just too many vendors. And what do you get? So we have been. William, help me remember the name of that other company. And there was this other company.
Yeah, I don't.
Right. Anyway, so we're not going to question them. But in global Xperia, yeah.
I wasn't going to say it, but
Yeah. Just it's Alzheimer light. Sorry. Yeah. So in Globalinternet, we just started with them. Try how does it work? How quickly can they turn around quote requests? How well do they work together with the local ISPs? I think they've been going through a quite significant growth over the last couple of years, and there were growing pains in that as well. I think that has settled mostly, but you can talk to that probably later on. But in general, we found in Globalinternet a very good partner to help us sourcing local internet connections, and they do the shopping for us in those countries as well. Compare vendors, vendors where they have better experience with, and so we can rely on them to give us a best proposal. And they always give us a few offers. Try this 1 year, try that 3 years, or different types of technologies. And so there's something to choose from, and it's basically an employee not on our pay slip, so that's quite good.
Thanks for HR.
Yeah, maybe to add, that's indeed what we're trying to do to work for you, and so we are transparent in providers that we use, and some others are that is all their own IP or that's hidden, and so we tell you that we work with Gold Sunshine in China with someone else who is the last mile provider, but what is the actual SLA or the actual bandwidth, and so that's we try to be there as transparent as we can, and also sharing tools, and so that you have real-time access in uptime and performance of services. To assist that.
all right. Time is actually flying by here, and although I have written really good questions, I want to make sure that that nobody in the room has anything that they want to ask the panel here. You have the chance to get a whatever you're thinking about to a real live case study here. Any questions before I go on from the audience? And feel free to raise your hand as we go along. I should say always, but. All right, in that case, I've seen quite a few case studies for SD-WAN over the past couple of years, and one of the key pieces of advice that we hear over and over again is make sure you do a thorough proof of concept, right? So, did you run a POC? How did it go? Can you take us through that? And I should say, sometimes in America we call proof of concept POC. I don't know if that translates everywhere, but
Yeah, so we did do a proof of concept. With Veenendaal and I think 2 other sites.
I think the more difficult ones, China and maybe also Brazil.
So not in a lab, you put these at real sites.
Yeah. So after we did the selection, it was a part of the RFP that the vendor chosen would be willing to put up some effort, do a POC with us. We typically pick the most difficult sites that we had, so that if it works there, pretty good chance that it works elsewhere. So that's what we did. So POC for us was very valuable. 1, to learn the technology. 2, to learn another group within this vendor that was working on SD-WAN instead of the Itanimas that we were already with them. So, yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, we have a very structured process for POCs, because sometimes it ends up in a technical freewheeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so you from decide what success criteria is the customer looking for, and deciding indeed upon the locations. We also always encourage customers to select the most challenging locations, because first of all, you can migrate a site in Europe to SD-WAN and it will perform well and probably even better than MPLS, but the difference is not as big as in difficult countries like China, for example, or Australia or Brazil. So users will instantly notice overnight the performance benefits that they gain out of migration to SD-WAN. So we have a structured process that, together with the customer, we take them through based on those agreed success criteria, drafting a very detailed test program. What are we going to test? How? Whom is going to test? What results do we expect? So we did the process with Elekta in about 2 months' time, and they were convinced that actually the solution met their requirements.
Excellent. Maybe just to add finally on the proof of concept, what we decided to do when we moved with this proof of concept is that when things work, we keep it operational. No sense to tune it back, but just grow the solution immediately, which was also a kind of crowbar for our management to release funding to actually go through this transition, because otherwise they had to pay the cost of reverting all the efforts that we have implemented elsewhere else. So that was why we could do this quite quickly.
And maybe also an interesting point to mention, especially with the presentation of Kevin from Tyrian, we also recognize that we might need a middle-mile solution for deploying a valid cloud solution globally. We actually have a blueprint solution in place and have deployed middle-mile solutions based on bespoke backbone solutions with other customers. With Elekta, we also proposed this as an optional service, because obviously it very much depends on the application traffic within the customer, where are the data center, the cloud services. So the proof of concept was also intended to see would VeloCloud run without a middle-mile solution good enough, or would we need to deploy something. Those middle-mile solutions were quite expensive, probably same cost as the total SD-WAN solution at the time. So we found out that it was not needed for delivering the performance that Elekta was looking for. I think now with the solution that Videns has put forward, we are also testing it as the de facto standard for our company for providing minimal solutions. And it could be delivered in a much more cost-effective way and even further improve the stability and the performance of the solution.
Right, yeah. Kind of like we were actually just talking about cable subscriptions versus all the platforms. You might end up cutting the cable cord just to pay more for all of your platforms. You don't want to end up cutting the MPLS cord to just add so many things on top of it, replacing it, that you get back up to the same price. Unless, of course, you've greatly improved your provisioning time, your bandwidth, and all that along the way, which is quite possible. So. All right, so what's great about this case study, I think, is that it's been going for long enough for you to have some real experience to share. So first, I'm wondering if you can sort of give us your feel about how well DIA has replaced MPLS in terms of functionality. If there's anything you've missed from MPLS days.
Well, we took the opportunity when we moved over to not only for resilience purposes, but just to bang bandwidth, tripled, so it's 5 times more, 6 times more bandwidth. It's cheap. There is one caveat, that the edges which are to be implemented are based on the bandwidth. So you can say, okay, go to Singapore, you want big circuit, it costs me $300 a month, very cheap, plug it in, and then you get the bill from VeloCloud. Because 1 gig port.
There's a lot of encrypted throughput there.
So you need to think about that. There is a balance on bandwidth and cost. So that's what we obviously found out. And because that's easy. Let's just add another one and another one and another one. And so there is definitely a balance. Other experiences over the years that it has been. From a quality point of view, as good as MPLS, because and I can only talk to VeloCloud because that's what we got the experience with. But the optimizations that it does is combined. So again, what I said, we're not depending on circuits. The best route is on packets through their networks. So the net outcome always is better than the quality of the single lines. So that is a good improvement, and that quality is, from my point of view, as good as MPLS, but much more bandwidth at a lower cost. So, yeah, no real negatives. The VeloCloud solutions gives us insight in usage on a high level. We added, took advantage of the IPANIMAs to give us more details on network usage, application usage, what sites talk to what sites in more detail, and so that we could enhance configurations going forward.
Excellent. All right. Well, I want to bring you two in here. We only have a few minutes left, and just take me through maybe what you would say to a potential customer who says, you know, I don't necessarily hate my telco, and MPLS is I know it. It's a security blanket, right? Or maybe they say I'm all for leaving behind MPLS, but I have a chief security officer or a CIO who is nervous about that. What do you guys say in those situations?
Well, I think we have about 45 customers, all global organizations, most of which, I think 90-95% run a fully internet-based SD-WAN solution. So from our perspective, we can assure a customer that he doesn't need to worry about the performance, but we realize that customers want to see it for themselves. So we can offer them things like a conditional rollout, which we tend to do instead of POCs. We can offer them to speak to reference customers who've been down that path before, people like Martin and other customer of ours. But we do realize that there will always be a portion of customers that are afraid to make that initial jump. So we're not pushing, although we are strongly propagating fully internet-based SD-WAN solutions.
No,
We are
not a push, right?
exactly encourage. We do realize that some customers may be a bit more risk averse, so they can always keep the very critical sites on MPLS for as long as they are not fully comfortable that they can rip that out and replace it with a more cheaper and higher capacity internet solution. And we have some customers who have done that. What we typically see is that within 6 to 12 months they get to know the SD-WAN solution, they grow comfortable with the SD-WAN solution, and then decide when contracts expire and to replace those after all. So it's multiple routes that customers can walk.
Yeah, I think there's not so much to add. I think that's what we also hear from customers, that the internet is as good as MPLS, but it comes with a lot of benefits from a cost and a deployment perspective. And I think if it comes to reliability, I think it's much better to add more circuits to increase the uptime.
And from a security point of view, we are working in the medical device industry, very regulated market, high standards for the security, compliance, GDPR, patient data, personal identifiable data. And so our compliance team and security team has to do a review before anything touches the network. And so we were pretty confident that the solution was absolutely good enough. And in front of this whole SD-WAN, we manage our own firewall still. And so it's not like, okay, we just give the keys, there you
go. I have time for one more question if there's one from the audience. Anybody else have anything they'd want to raise for this case study? Obviously, I assume you guys will be around at least a little bit afterwards to answer any questions then.
Can I make a remark?
Please, yeah.
I'm also from Elekta, so I want to add one more thing. When we did the POC, we saw the quality that we got from the MPLS side, because you don't have insight on how good your MPLS connection is. As soon as you put a device to it, seeing, okay, what's your jitter, latency, packet loss. With the VeloCloud, we got that insight, and we saw that sometimes the MPLS was worse than the internet connection.
Right, so even if you kept MPLS, you'd want the SD-WAN overlay to tell you how it's doing.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so we're almost done. Martin, I just want to ask one more question. It's just that you have this really successful case study and story that everyone can hopefully take some lessons from. What's your next challenge? What is it that's coming up that you need to deal with?
what we need is, given the nature of our business, we got software development teams and groups all over the world, give them a better cloud experience. I know there are different options, but they are still in a development phase or a very early on phase. So if I select a direction, I'd rather stay on it than take a decision over 2 years. Shit, wrong choice. Need to do something else. And so cloud to me is very important. We're decommissioning data centers at the moment in APAC. Into our cloud, we're consolidating our on-premise data center footprints, move it into cloud. And so the better we can integrate our SD-WAN solutions with cloud solutions, many of our back office applications are already cloud vendors, Salesforce, Workday, you name it, Concur, all cloud solutions. So that also our global development centers move in the cloud and they're distributed. And the better we can make those guys work, the better we can bring products to market, which is obviously one of my goals.
Making the business happen, right? That's the IT infrastructure manager's job, ultimately. All right, Karen and Case, any closing thoughts for us before we wrap it up?
No, I think what we did not mention is that I think there were two things that were coming nicely together with the Elekta case. The fact that Globalinternet already provided underlay services. We also signed up a strategic partnership with Globalinternet just prior to this RFP coming out. So basically we could offer Elekta a choice. They already had a contract, so for them it was easier to continue the contract with Globalinternet and replacing the MPLS circuits and adding more internet circuits to the Globalinternet agreement. We fully end-to-end manage the solution. So for Elekta perspective, Videns is the service partner for the entire global WAN. If there's any issue, then obviously we will either manage that with Globalinternet if it's an ISP-related issue, or we will solve the SD-WAN issue. So I think there were two things that were coming nicely together when actually this project popped up. Yeah.
The only thing I want to add, has been a pleasure working together with Elekta for this long time. It's one of we were only founded in 2012, so Elekta was one of our first customers, and happy to be able to this panel and to be able to present this SD-WAN use case.
Absolutely, it's very interesting. Yeah, thanks. All right, please join me in thanking our panelists.